For most people, the greatest danger in their daily lives is invisible. It hides behind the walls, under the streets, inside massive steel towers, and deep beneath the ground. It hums quietly, constantly, unnoticed. It's the power grid, something so familiar, so present, so automatic, that we barely think about it. But the more you understand how the grid actually works, the more you realize that it is not the stable, unbreakable system we assume it is. In reality, it is the single most fragile dependency modern civilization relies upon. And every indication, scientific, historical, geopolitical, and even spiritual, points to a future where this enormous structure fails in ways many people aren't ready to face. Electricity isn't just a convenience. It's the foundation of modern life. Every food supply chain, every medical facility, every communication system, every financial transaction, every water source, every transportation network, everything relies on power. Remove that power for even 24 hours, and society begins to shake. Remove it for a week, and entire cities break down. Remove it for months, and the world we know collapses completely. This isn't theory. This isn't fear. This is a mathematical, structural truth recognized by grid analysts, physicists, emergency preparedness agencies, and even military intelligence. The problem begins with something most people don't realize: the grid was never designed for the level of demand we are placing on it today. Many of the major transformers, switching stations, and core components of the grid are between 40 and 70 years old. These components were engineered decades ago, long before the digital age. They were not built for the power needs of billions of devices, electric vehicles, crypto mining, AI data centers, endless appliances, and heating and cooling systems operating at modern intensities. And they were definitely not built to withstand cascading failures caused by extreme weather, cyber attacks, electromagnetic pulses, or solar storms. In fact, some transformers in use right now were installed in the 1960s. Think about that. Imagine taking a device built before the moon landing, before personal computers, before digital anything, and forcing it to handle loads it was never meant to face. That's the reality of the grid today. Old components, overloaded lines, and systems that depend on one another like dominoes. If one major piece goes down, it can trigger a chain reaction felt across entire regions. You might remember certain blackouts in the news: New York's blackout in 2003, Texas in 2021, California's rolling outages, entire European countries dealing with infrastructure stress. What the news almost never explains is that these events are symptoms, not anomalies. They're warnings of a system that is past its life expectancy. The frequency of major outages has increased dramatically in the last 2 decades, and experts predict an even steeper rise in the coming years. Now combine that with increasing natural events. Solar storms, more specifically, coronal mass ejections, blasting charged particles into Earth's magnetic field, have always existed. But as we rely more heavily on high-voltage transmission lines, we become more vulnerable to geomagnetically induced currents. A strong solar storm like the 1859 Carrington event could cripple entire power networks. Back then, humanity barely had telegraph wires. Today, everything is connected to electricity. If a Carrington-level event occurred tomorrow, we wouldn't just lose some electronics. We could lose everything: communications, navigation, pipelines, satellites, and the entire grid infrastructure simultaneously. Scientists estimate that if a solar storm of that magnitude hit today, transformers would burn out across multiple continents. The most critical part: these massive transformers take years to manufacture. Not days. Not weeks. Years. They are customized, built overseas, transported by special carriers, and installed by teams of engineers. There are no warehouses filled with backups. If they fail, there is no fast replacement. That means a solar storm alone, without any war, without any attack, could plunge entire nations into long-term blackout conditions. And then there's the electromagnetic pulse threat, which is far more realistic today than it was even 20 years ago. An EMP doesn't have to be a doomsday-level weapon. Even a relatively small high-altitude detonation could fry circuits across wide areas. Power lines amplify electromagnetic energy like antennas, channeling destructive surges directly into transformers and substations. This isn't speculation. It's physics. It's well documented, well studied, and well understood by anyone involved in national defense. The US EMP Commission warned repeatedly that a single EMP event could collapse the grid for months. But here's the most important part: you don't even need a high-altitude weapon. Cyber attacks today can achieve nearly the same effect by causing cascading failures, corrupting grid controls, or simply overloading networks. We've already seen attacks on pipelines, hospitals, banks, airports, and government institutions. Grid operators worldwide have confirmed dozens of attempted cyber intrusions, many successful, many blocked, but all increasing in frequency. The more digital the grid becomes, the easier it is to attack. Now add climate stress. Record heat causing AC demand spikes. Deep freezes causing heating failures. Droughts reducing hydroelectric output. Storms knocking out distribution lines. Fires forcing shutdowns. Every type of extreme pushes the grid closer to its breaking point. Utilities try to manage demand by issuing warnings, cutting power to prevent fires, or rolling outages to avoid total collapse. But these are temporary solutions. They don't change the fact that the grid cannot keep up. Then you have the geopolitical factor: global tensions rising, infrastructure becoming strategic targets, and nations preparing for conflicts that could involve critical system disruptions. If there's one thing history teaches us, it's that societies often fail not because of a single catastrophic event, but because of multiple smaller stresses converging at once. And somewhere in the center of all this is the truth: modern humans are dependent on electricity in a way no civilization has ever been dependent on any resource in history. Remove electricity, and everything fails. And while governments advise having flashlights, canned food, and a battery-powered radio, the truth is far more serious. Without a reliable source of energy, most families would not last more than a few days before conditions become dangerous. Water stops flowing. Refrigerators shut down. Medicine spoils. Communication disappears. Banks freeze. Fuel pumps go offline. Heating and cooling systems stop. Hospitals run out of backup power within days. And the more a city relies on technology, the faster the breakdown occurs. This is where the documentary becomes personal. Because all the warnings, all the scientific papers, all the grid reports and emergency preparedness manuals say the same thing: if you want to survive a major grid event, whether it's natural, accidental, or intentional, you cannot depend on the system. You must have your own power source. A personal energy backup is no longer optional. It is essential. But here's where most people go wrong. When they think of backup power, they think of traditional generators. The kind that run on gasoline or diesel. And while a generator can be helpful in small, short-term outages, it becomes completely unreliable in long-term scenarios. Generators make noise, which attracts unwanted attention. They require fuel, and fuel disappears quickly in a crisis. They break, clog, overheat, and require oil changes. Most importantly, no generator can run endlessly. When the fuel stops, the generator is nothing more than a heavy metal box. Solar panels solve some of these issues, but rooftop systems are expensive, require permits, require installation, and depend on an inverter system that can fail. They also rely on a battery bank that costs thousands of dollars. Most people cannot afford a $15,000 to $30,000 solar setup. And even small portable solar systems are usually too weak to power more than a handful of devices. So what options does the average person have? A silent, reliable, sustainable source of energy that does not depend on fuel, does not cost a fortune, and does not require advanced engineering skills. A system that works even when the grid fails completely. A system that is small, portable, DIY-friendly, and designed specifically for long-term emergencies. This is exactly why the energy revolution system has become one of the most important solutions in the survival community. Unlike traditional systems, this approach focuses on a unique method of energy generation that does not rely on wind, large solar arrays, or fuel. Instead, it uses a simplified blueprint based on principles of electromagnetic induction, power recycling, and energy capture that most people never learn about in school. The reason this system is so powerful is because it operates on components that are easy to find, easy to assemble, and resistant to the same failures that destroy conventional power sources. It can be hidden, protected, and maintained by anyone, even those with no technical background. Its footprint is small, its output is stable, and it can provide the kind of continuous, silent electricity that matters during a blackout. The deeper you study energy systems, the more you realize that decentralization is the future. Not giant solar farms. Not massive wind turbines. But small, distributed, personal energy units that individuals control. This trend is already accelerating around the world. Families are building their own micro-power grids. Rural communities are installing personal backup units. Homesteaders are shifting entirely off-grid. Government agencies even recommend that each household have its own emergency power system. But here is where things become even more urgent. The timeline for grid instability is accelerating. Reports from energy institutions indicate that peak demand events are expected to grow by more than 60% over the next decade. The infrastructure to support the demand does not exist. The components needed to upgrade the grid are backordered for months or years. And energy companies are warning openly that rolling blackouts will become normal in certain regions. That means relying on the grid is no longer safe. Depending on city infrastructure is no longer wise. And expecting things to stay normal is no longer realistic. Every sign, scientific, historical, environmental, political, technological, points to an era where personal energy independence becomes as important as food and water. This is why the energy revolution system is not just a product, it is a lifeline. It provides a blueprint to create a personal, portable, reliable energy system that costs a fraction of solar setups, requires no fuel, produces no noise, and works under conditions where every other system fails. When the grid collapses, when the lights go out, when transformers blow, when fuel stops flowing, when communication falls silent, this system keeps running. Many people underestimate what happens within the first 72 hours of a blackout. Without refrigeration, food spoils rapidly. Without heating or cooling, temperatures become dangerous. Without communication, people lose contact with family and emergency services. Without lights, crime increases dramatically. And without power, nearly every tool, device, and system modern life depends on instantly becomes useless. This is why energy is the first resource you must secure. Without energy, nothing else matters. But the real turning point is understanding that you must secure your energy before the crisis hits. Once a major event happens, demand for backup systems skyrockets. Supplies run out. Prices multiply. Shipping stops. And building anything becomes dramatically harder. Preparation is not something you do later. It is something you must do now. One of the most powerful aspects of the energy revolution system is that it allows you to bypass the traditional barriers. No waiting for installers. No expensive hardware. No special permits. No reliance on grid infrastructure. Everything is based on components you can find, tools you already own, and a blueprint that guides you step by step. This is how ordinary families protect themselves quietly, efficiently, and affordably. Throughout history, people survive crises by being proactive, not reactive. By preparing before disaster, not after. And today, the warning signs are louder than ever. Governments are openly acknowledging grid vulnerabilities. Agencies are conducting drills for long-term outages. Scientific institutions are publishing reports on solar storm cycles. And international tensions continue to push critical infrastructure into the category of potential targets. Even in ancient texts and prophetic writings, there are references to a time of darkness, a time when light disappears, when systems fail, when the world is plunged into confusion. Whether you see these as symbolic or literal, it is striking how closely modern vulnerabilities mirror ancient warnings. The idea of a great blackout, a global or regional period where light is stripped away, has appeared in multiple historical and spiritual texts. Today, for the first time in history, we actually have the infrastructure weakness that makes such an event possible. What makes the energy revolution system so compelling is that it bridges the gap between scientific preparedness and personal survival. It's not based on unrealistic technology. It's not based on fantasies. It's based on real electrical principles, simplified into a practical system that can be built by anyone. And because it doesn't rely on fuel or giant panels, it remains protected from the very forces that threaten the grid itself. Imagine a blackout scenario lasting weeks. The grid goes silent. Streets darken. Stores close. Fuel stations shut down. Communication disappears. But inside your home, there is light. Your devices work. Your refrigerator runs. Your essential tools remain powered. You have the one resource everyone else has lost. This is what real preparedness looks like. The urgency is not theoretical. It's not distant. It's already here. Every month, new reports emerge. Every year, outages grow. Every week, cyber threats evolve. Every day, the grid ages further. And every trend line points in the same direction. We are approaching a point where the system cannot handle the world built on top of it. That's why the smartest families, the most prepared individuals, and the strongest communities are turning to self-reliant solutions. The energy revolution system isn't about fear. It's about empowerment. It gives you the knowledge and the tools to protect your home, your family, and your stability in a world that is becoming increasingly unpredictable. It transforms you from dependent to independent, from vulnerable to prepared. You don't have to wait for the government to fix the grid. You don't have to trust energy companies to prevent outages. You don't have to hope that solar storms, EMPs, or cyber attacks won't happen. You don't have to be powerless in the face of rising instability. You can take control of your energy now, while there is still time. This is why the energy revolution system is so critical. It stands alone as the one truly self-sufficient solution that doesn't rely on fragile infrastructure, expensive installations, or fuel-based systems. It's a system that works because it's built on principles that endure even when the world around you breaks down. When the next crisis hits, and it will, the people who prepared will survive with dignity, stability, and strength. The people who didn't will find themselves at the mercy of circumstances they never imagined. The choice is simple, and the opportunity is now. If you want to be among those who are ready, who are safe, who are protected, then securing your own off-grid energy source is not just important, it is urgent. The grid is failing, the warnings are clear, and the window for preparation is closing. But with the energy revolution system, you have the blueprint, the knowledge, and the ability to create your own power before the darkness arrives. Prepare while the lights are still on, because when they go out, the only energy you'll have is the energy you prepared for today.